taking care of your machine is really going to make a big difference on how long this machine lasts. One thing nice is you do need to clean the machine, but you don't actually oil this machine. Did you notice you didn't have any oil that came with your accessories? And that is because you don't have to oil it. They have some really cool space age material in here. Kind of lubricates itself. It's pretty cool. So first thing I want to do is have you take out your bobbin and remove your thread. So instead of actually pulling your spool out at the top, I want you to take scissors, clip it up here at the spool, and pull the thread out the needle. Do you know how to do that? What you want to do is make sure that if there's a lot of lint gathered up at the foot, if you take your spool out and drag the thread up, the thread and lint just go all up through this area. That's even worse for your machine. Let's go ahead and just take out the needle, so that way we don't stab ourselves, and then just go ahead and pull the foot towards you. And the next thing you're going to do is take that nice short screwdriver and actually loosen up these screws. And once you kind of get them loosened up a little bit, you can actually take your finger and kind of spin them out of their little holders there. So I love the fact that I'm glad these are short screwdrivers. Those long ones don't work well underneath the housing here. All right, so that's going to take off the plate. So as we get in here, the one thing not to do is do not blow in here and do not use canned air, because if you do, that's just going to blow more of the lint into the machine. Even your manual makes a big note about that. Do not use canned air. The other thing is that you can just come in here and reach in and pull out your bobbin case. Now putting this back in, I'm going to make sure you know exactly how to do this so you get it in correctly, because you can actually get it twisted. I don't want you to run into that. So what are some fabrics that are very, very linty? You will find like fleeces and flannels are all going to probably gather up. It'll just be, if you're sewing on red fleece, the whole area here is going to be red. The more you sew, the deeper that gets, and that can actually make your stitches skip, or maybe your thread breaks, and that's just the classic example of the machine telling you you need to clean it. So take this all out. You can then use the brush and get in here and just get as much of the lint out as possible. This is one of my favorites. It's kind of like a dust it, and it's kind of like a Swiffer for sewing machines, and it just absorbs everything. You'll probably find the most lint is in this kind of basket area here. And if I actually turn the handle, it's pretty neat. This is the hook. That part right here, this little sharp part, will rotate 2 times for every 1 stitch. And with that rotating, there's a lot of action going on there. So that's pretty cool how that all works. All right, so getting this back in here. First off, there is a small little, what I call a heel to this bobbin case. So as you put that in, it needs to bump up against this spring. So as you drop it in, it'll sit kind of in the basket. There's really only one way it sits, but it needs to bounce right here. See how that's just tapping? If you get it in over to the side, which some people somehow try to do, it just doesn't, well, it's not fitting really well anyway, but just to note, it has to be there. It will kind of rock back and forth here, and that's okay. You also will find that these little 2 points are pointing in when you are getting that in correct. Okay, so put that in, and this is after you've cleaned it all. And then next we'll take this little edge, tip it into the machine area here first, and then that will come back down in place. Want to just make sure that that gets down, there we go, nice and flush to the housing. Then go ahead and take your time getting everything back together. I always put that needle on last, so you'll see me put the presser foot on next and the needle in last. It's actually really hard. I mean, if you were trying to put the needle on without a presser foot, it's really hard to know like where to guide it up to. So if you'll notice, if you actually put a foot on, see, now you know where to actually get that positioned. Put a new needle in. This would be a good time for that if you haven't changed that in a while. I put the point in first and then go ahead and lift that all the way up. Make sure it gets as high as it will be. And here's a little trick and a recommendation tip more is that once you actually put a needle in, is make sure you use the needle threader, because that needle threader, if it lines up, then you know this needle has been inserted and lifted as high as it is able to go. Go ahead and thread the machine, test it out, make sure everything is working well, and then you'll be ready to go. Do give yourself some cleaning about every 2 to 3 bobbins. And again, if you find yourself with a thread break, the machine sounding a little bit not smooth, that is the classic example of when to clean the machine.